Welcome back. The Nelson Mandela Bay Metropolitan Municipality has initiated a significant effort to recover millions of rand from former municipal officials found responsible for unauthorized, irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. This aggressive move toward financial accountability follows a landmark Supreme Court of Appeal ruling which clarified that municipal officials can be held personally liable for intentionally or negligently incurring such expenditures as stipulated under Section 32 of the Municipal Finance Management Act. Now let's chat more about this with Professor Kedibone Phago from the Northwest University. A very good evening to you, Prof. This sounds like music to many people's ears. Municipal officials responsible for their facilitation of irregular and wasteful expenditure being held directly and personally accountable. Now, of course, that's the punitive justice that a lot of South Africans have been calling for. Talk to us a little bit more about this judgment and what it means.
Good evening, Masa, and good evening to your viewers. Thank you for having me. Indeed. So what we need to understand is that there has been a case in the Nelson Mandela Municipality, and a lot of a lot of municipal officials have, some have moved on with their lives, some are still in the system, but largely they have really abused their powers in their positions. And so there has been a judgment. And this is important because the judgment says that there is some very nice amounts that these municipal officials, and these are very senior municipal officials, not just an ordinary rank and file, just an ordinary official in the municipalities, but very senior municipal officials that have colluded and have made decisions that would favor their own businesses instead of advancing the interest of the municipality. So the court has found in the favor of the municipality that these public officials that have abused their positions of power and have given themselves tenders in the municipalities must now pay back those monies. And I think this is the right thing to do. I just think that it is not happening at the right pace and scale, because the entire local government system in South Africa is on its knees. So this is a drop in the ocean, I would think.
A drop in the ocean indeed if the Auditor General reports are anything to go by each and every year. But, you know, Prof, you also mentioned that these aren't junior officials. They're quite senior officials in the metro as well. I mean, it's a former city manager who's an advocate. You've got a former executive director for public health and an acting city manager, as well as the former chief financial officer. Now, when we're looking at the Section 32 of the Municipal Financial Management Act, that the judgment is based off, basically saying that municipal officials can be held personally responsible for intentionally or negligently incurring wasteful or fruitless and irregular expenditure. The law is there. Why aren't we seeing more of this? Why aren't we seeing more of this caliber also of senior officials being held responsible personally so? I mean, to know that they can attach some of your assets, that would be a deterrent and a half.
Major element, Masa, that is really a huge contribution to corruption across all the spheres of government, and in this case for the municipality, is political will. We don't have political will enough to make decisions that favor the interest, but we also do have a huge high level, of political interference in South Africa across our public sector. When this happens, it means that many of these officials have political protection, and some of these cases that need to be taken up by these institutions, the public protector, the Auditor General's office, they and the council actually, I'm not even sure why it's not featuring in this report, because it tells you that it is part of the problem, and that needs to be thoroughly investigated, and say which members of the council were standing on the way of the investigators, that because that is what we often see so many times in this country.
Yeah, and just speaking about political interference and political will as well, do you think also the kind of democracy that South Africa has, this proportional representation, is part of what may be the challenge to have these three different spheres of government? And now if you have Party A that is in charge of the province, what are the chances that they will, implement such punitive measures on a municipality?
Masa, you are raising a very complicated question, which is very necessary to discuss, because what I've heard, many South Africans believe that the proportional representation system, which essentially means that we elect the party and the party elects, nominate its own representative. So we do not have, across the board, not directly vote for our representatives. So while we do have this element so far in local government, where we have independent individuals running for the office, so that would be a little bit direct. But overall, our system essentially supports, because it works on a representative democracy. So we elect political parties. But if you read and listen to people who also in some of the African countries, if you go to East Africa, Kenya, if you go to Tanzania, they have a system where they elect directly their representatives, and sometimes they think we have a better system. And this is why the question of how we configure our elections, electoral system, and the question of political will and political interference are very serious. So in other words, we need to find a very functional system where we punish offenders. We have really preached quite a lot on issues of ethics, but people who are in the positions of responsibility seems not to really care that much. And I think our role should now be to strengthen institutions in our country that are really far more interested in making sure that officials must be held accountable. If we cannot win that battle, I don't think that any political system of the kind of democracy we choose to have will give us the answers we are looking for.
Yeah, and speaking about that political will and political interference as well, Cogta Minister Velunkosini Hlabisa told the media that the municipality declined the settlement offers and proceeded with the rights of execution against immovable property owned by the four officials. So basically that's the municipality saying, look, we want nothing to do with this settlement. The people who perpetrated these crimes should be held directly responsible. It seems when push comes to shove that the protection is not, it goes up until a certain extent.
And this is quite important, because when we have this kind of leadership that is able to say, we are dealing with issues of corruption, we are not going to protect you here, you have defaulted, you have stolen the money from the citizens, from your residents, and you need to answer for yourself, and we are going to subject this matter to our law enforcement agencies. But they also need a lot of evidence, so they need to put together a very strong case, because we have seen so many cases of this nature where we thought that it is given that people will be brought to book, and they just are able to escape and get scot-free. So I think let's hope it doesn't end here, that the minister has actually made a very strong statement, but that the law enforcement agencies are also going to equal the task to make sure that those people that have been implicated in this massive looting of public resources in the municipalities are going to pay not only the money back, but also face a jail time, so that there is a very clear message that will be sent to those who are in the same space to realize that their interest here should mainly be to serve the interest of their citizens, not their own pockets and friends.
Absolutely. Professor Phago, always such a pleasure to get your insights. Really appreciate your time.